Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Banks. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And this is a show I'm going to enjoy immensely. But before we even get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, follow me on Instagram. My handle is CTABANZ. Follow the channel, Dreamers Pro, and check out our podcast that we have pinned in the comments below. Let me get into this topic here. So the new thing right now that people want to talk about is this damn we done with the 90s. I couldn't folks, it has gotten to this point. It has gotten to this point that the golden era of the NBA, you got some of these guys running around, TikTokers running around all over the place talking about we done with the 90s. It has gotten to that point. The era that couldn't even win a bronze medal in the FIBA games is the era talking about we done with the 90s. You simply cannot make any of this up. So you've had some people in media like Gilbert Arenas and others have been trying to say, oh, this is the best era and blah, 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 which I don't believe. And I don't believe Gilbert Arenas believes what he says. And I've told him, I said, Gilbert, I don't believe you believe a single word that you're saying. I just think you're pandering to these young guys. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it. Makes no sense. Right? But nevertheless, these guys have been trying to say this and say that. And now they're trying to talk about we're done with the 90s. To discredit the Jordan era. So the question then becomes, if you're done with the 90s, what era are we actually, like, what era are we on? The 80s? Well, I know y'all not going to say that. What is it? The 2020s? Well, is that what y'all talking about? Well, it turns out the most skilled player in NBA history, in my view and the view of many, Kobe Bryant, had some audios in the past and things to say about this era with these LeBron fans because they're the ones pushing it, where he totally exposes these guys and exposes this era for peddling this madness that they're trying to peddle right now. So what we want to do is we want to play a little bit of what Kobe Bryant thinks about this current era of NBA players and their skill level. Take a listen to what Kobe had to say here.
Kobe, you've been pretty critical of the AAU system and the way American players are brought up.
Not pretty critical, I'm extremely critical. I hate it. Because it doesn't teach our players how to play the right way. How to think the game, how to play in combinations of threes. And I think everything is it's a reward system. I think coaches who are teaching the game are getting rewarded one fashion or another. And it's just a showcase.
Do you feel like
it's absolutely horrible for the game?
The young guys that are coming up, do you feel like the game is kind of stiff, whereas when your guys were more skilled?
Yeah, but I think that was just by luck in the generation that I grew up in. You know what I mean? Because like my generation is when the AAU basketball really started becoming. And I got lucky because I grew up in Europe.
Right.
Everything there was still fundamental. So I learned all the basics. And I think we're doing a tremendous disservice to our young basketball players right now. That's something that definitely needs to be fixed, and it's going to be one of the things that I definitely focus on.
What are you seeing when you watch today's game? We got issues where we're questioning guys getting rest, taking rest, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what do you see when you watch today's game?
Well, I mean, listen, the game has grown substantially. The age of social media has really altered or grown the amount of opinions that we have available to the game. So as a result, you have a wide-ranging opinion on one issue. Which is fine. But I think at the core of it all is the game itself. So if players are continuing to get better, that's what's most important. Now, in terms of the development of players, I feel like that has completely gone backwards. And it starts at a very, at the youth level and growing up through AAU and so forth and so on. We're not teaching our kids the fundamentals of the game. We're not teaching them how to think the game. And that's a bigger issue. All the other things that surround the game will come and go. But the game itself is the most.
Kobe, is that really a bigger issue, or are you as an outlier? Like, you had a very well-rounded game, but not everyone did. There were a lot of bums compared to you then, just as there are now compared to the best players. Are you the old-timer now looking back and going, in my day, everyone knew the game? That was just you. Or do you really think it's gone backwards in that way?
No, it has. I mean, our development in USA basketball, you can just look at that on the surface and the difficulty and the challenges that we face in playing international competitions. So when I grew up and growing up overseas in Italy, I was very fortunate because I caught the teaching time in Europe. So, the Red Holtzmans, the Tex Winners, and all these great coaches at the time went over to Europe to teach coaches, have coaching clinics of how to train players. So when I was growing up, I caught the fundamentals of that game. right? Pau Gasol, Manu Ginobili, same thing. And so you look at the difficulty that we have had in international competition is because these players learn how to play the game and think the game at all levels. Pau Gasol, just as comfortable handling the ball as he is in the post. Marc Gasol, right? You look at San Antonio Spurs and the way that they move the ball. And so we have to do a better job developing our players.
So you heard what Kobe Bryant had to say. He broke it down to a molecular level for you guys. Now, who you going to listen to? What an NBA player y'all going to listen to talk basketball over Kobe? Who's the guy? Who's the guy in media right now you're going to listen to? Who? There's nobody. Literally. There's nobody I would rather listen to talk about basketball than Kobe Bryant. Because first of all, Kobe Bryant was a very intelligent person. Number two, he could explain things very clearly. And number three, he was very, very observant. So that's what Kobe had to say about the current skill level of where we are in the NBA right now. But it didn't stop there. Kobe also took it a step further when he was talking to Quentin Richardson, when he was talking about the lack of competitiveness that we see in NBA players today. And this has been exhibited over the last two All-Star games. So for those of you who didn't hear what Kobe Bryant thinks about the competitive spirit of modern NBA players today, want to play what Kobe Bryant had to say for you here. I want you guys to listen to it carefully, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what Kobe Bryant thought about players' competitiveness today.
What do you think about some of the superstars nowadays is not being in the, because like us, we grew up watching
Jordan and
Mike,
Dominique.
The greats was the ones that were putting on the show. And I'm not saying that I don't want to see some of these other boys, because nowadays some of these other boys got crazy hops too. But I'm saying, like, I would like to see our superstars. If you one of those crazy athletes, forget about all that, your brand or I don't want to lose. Man, go put on a show like Aaron Gordon and Levine them did, like how MJ and Don. If you a superstar and you got bounce, go do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the All-Star game in general needs a little revamping because it used to be competitive.
Yeah.
It used to be competitive. And, fans want to see the best pickup game in the world. That's what this is. They don't want to see you running up and down and dunking and doing all this crazy. They want to see what happens when you get this collection of best basketball players on the planet and they play and they go head up against each other.
Man.
I mean, you guys play harder at a pickup game in UCLA.
For real.
And ain't billions of people watching.
For real.
Definitely do.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely do.
They gotta turn
the All-Star game needs a little changing. I always loved competing in them. I didn't lose many of them.
Nah,
me
you
and
was
CP
one,
used to talk all the time.
One of the ones. You took it serious.
Yeah, we went it. I don't think me and CP, when we played together in the All-Star game, I don't think we've ever lost a game.
Yeah.
And we used to look at each other and say, okay.
Going serious.
Let's
They don't want to play, we going to play.
Fourth quarter, let's go get them.
Yeah.
So you heard what Kobe had to say. Now, one of the things that people have been pushing, like Gilbert Arenas and others, is that this is the most skilled era ever. But it turns out Kobe Bryant didn't believe that. As a matter of fact, Kobe Bryant believed that this particular era lacked all of the fundamentals necessary to even be a skilled player. And he broke it down. He said, no, this is not the most skilled era, and we're actually witnessing a regression in the NBA today. And he was actually questioned about this during, I believe, one of his camps or maybe post-game. And they were asking him to expand on his position about how players today are not being taught the fundamentals of the game. And he was actually predicting the downfall. And we actually saw the downfall take place in the last FIBA games, where this current crop of NBA players could not adjust to the international game. However, you have players who play internationally that come into the NBA and totally dominate, i.e. Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and others. So for those of you who didn't hear what Kobe Bryant had to say there, want to play what he had to say for you now, and then want to continue on with the show. Take a listen to what Kobe had to say there.
Well, it gave me the foundation. So I was very fortunate to have great coaches that taught me the game at the most fundamental level. So that means footwork, the importance of passing with your left hand as equally as you do with your right, moving off the ball, being able to set proper screens, how to defend properly off the ball and on the ball. So all the fundamentals, the basics. Like, we were lucky if we ever scrimmaged once in an entire week because everything was just drills.
So that time was the first time for you to actually know about global basketball. Is that something like different than you thought? If you got to pick one word to describe the global basketball you first see, which word would you pick?
One word to describe global basketball?
At the age of 6.
At the age of 6.
I would have said something like Magic, Michael, and Larry. That's how I would have described. Because to me, that's what the NBA was. I didn't know it. Like, I knew what Italian basketball was. I knew what European basketball was. I knew it like the back of my hand. The NBA was still kind of a mystery. You couldn't just turn on the TV and see an NBA game. That wasn't happening. So that was a much bigger mystery to me than, Italian basketball.
Well, let's talk about your national career. Yeah. Actually, I think you were summoned by Team USA earlier in 2000, but it was like 7 years later when you first played the game representing Team USA. So how does it feel to finally put on that jersey and represent your own country?
It felt great to put on the jersey because it means so much more than playing for your team.
When we lost in 2004, it was a heavy blow for us. This is a sport that we've dominated for years, and I think there's a lot of beauty in the fact that we lost because it means that the game is growing so much, and there's so many countries out there that are playing at a high level. But at the same time, it was like, okay, all right, that's beautiful, but now we want it back. We want it back. And so 2008 was about that. It was about kind of reclaiming, what we feel we started.
So you heard what he had to say. Now, recently, Gilbert Arenas put out a show where he says something that I said there's no way I'm going to produce a show to respond to what Gilbert had to. There's just no way I'm going to. Because it sounded so bad that I was like, there's no way we can actually touch this show. But I'm going to touch on his comments a little bit because it's kind of related to what Kobe Bryant said in this ESPN article back in 2018 that I want to get into, where essentially they were talking about how defense has been ruined. And Gilbert Arenas said the reason that the game has been ruined is because if they want to improve the defense, they need to make it better. They need to basically deport all of the European players back to their countries, and you will see an improvement in the defense. First of all, I don't think we need to go any further than to say that those comments sounded extremely, extremely xenophobic. Like, if no one is going to say it, I'm going to say it. That was not a polite thing to say. It really wasn't. Number two, it looks very weak because it's like, we can't beat these guys, so let's get rid of them. It's a very, very, very weak thing to say in my personal view, and it's very wrong. And let's be honest, as black people, we got to stop the bull. We got to stop the bull. If this was a white league and we had a white former NBA player talking about foreign black players, African, whatever the hell you want to call them, and they're playing in the league and they're talking about how do we improve such and such in the league, and they say we need to get rid of all of the blacks and Africans, you MFers will be standing up hollering and screaming racism and screaming this and screaming prejudice and screaming all of that and screaming all of that. But in this particular moment, y'all were laughing. Y'all was looking like bozos for laughing at that. You was looking like a super clown for doing that. You cannot be talking about, oh, I'm oppressed and racism, this and this and this, but you only understand it when it comes to you. If you're truly against racism and xenophobia and all of that crazy stuff, be against it across the board. Otherwise, shut the hell up. I'm sorry. That was a very, 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 very bad thing to say. I'm just keeping it real. Had the tables been turned, and I'm saying this as a black person, you want to judge me and say I don't give a F about what you think. No other black person defines me and gives me the rule book on how to be black. I'm calling it down the line. That was ignorant. But I want to read from an article that Kobe Bryant said, where he talked about why European players are more skilled than players today. So let me just read a little bit of it here. Kobe Bryant believes European basketball players are more skillful than American basketball players and says it's a growing trend that can be blamed on the greed of coaching at the AAU level. I think that European players are just way more skillful. Bryant said Friday night after the Los Angeles Lakers 109-106 loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. They're just taught the game the right way at an early age. They're more skillful. It's something we really have to fix. We really have to address that. We have to teach our kids to play the right way. Bryant was quick to point a finger at the decline of skilled players in the United States. He then spoke about AAU. Bryant said, horrible, terrible AAU. It's stupid, and it doesn't teach our kids how to play the game the right way. The article then continues on. Bryant was born in Philadelphia, but when he was 6, his father, former NBA player Joe Bryant, moved the family to Italy to continue his playing career. Kobe spent his childhood in Europe until Joe retired in 1991 and moved the family back to the United States. When you have limitations and you understand your limitations and you stay within yourself, you can be great, Kobe Bryant said. You know what you can do and what you can't do. In America, it's a big problem for us because we're not teaching players how to play all-around basketball. That's why you have Pau and Marc Gasol, and that's the reason why 90% of the Spurs roster is European players, because they have more skill. Bryant smiled when asked what type of player he would have become if his family never moved to Italy and hadn't learned how to play the game in Europe. Horrible. No, excuse me. He says, I probably wouldn't be able to dribble with my left hand and shoot with my left hand and have good footwork, Bryant said. I was kind of fortunate because I was growing up in Italy. The Red Auerbachs, the Tex winners, and all the great coaches were doing clinics and camps in Europe. They were teaching all the club coaches, and the club coaches were following their advice and their fundamentals like the Bible. And they were teaching all of us kids that type of stuff. Me, Manu, all of these guys that grew up around that same time were a product of that. It's a big difference. Bryant had a simple solution to the problem. Teach players the game at an early age and stop treating them like cash cows for everyone to profit off of, he said. That's how you do it. You have to teach them the game, give them instruction. But Bryant would hold his annual summer basketball camp and was quick to point out that any solution involving changing the current AAU basketball won't happen overnight. That's a deep well, because then you start cutting into people's pockets. Bryant said people get really upset when you start cutting into their pockets because all they do is try to profit off these poor kids. There's no quick answer. So you heard what Kobe Bryant had to say. I don't think there's anything else I need to say. I think I've given you guys all the necessary evidence of information that you need. LeBron fans, you guys that propagated this, that we're done with the night, y'all are weak for this. Y'all are weak for this. Y'all not even keeping the basketball. Now, y'all, it's so embarrassing, man. Y'all are not even talking head up. Y'all not talking about the era and all of this. Like, we gonna do this? Y'all want to bring up lowlights? Like, we gonna do this? Is this what we gonna do? Like, y'all hit a whole new low with that one. I'm just keeping it funky. Y'all hit a whole new low. It's like, how low can you go? Y'all went real low. That was some clown stuff. These are just my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We catch you guys on the next show. Peace.